Hello and welcome to Premier League All Access with me, Sam Matterface, TalkSport's chief football correspondent Alex Crook and the former Arsenal winger Perry Groves. Here we are looking at what was a thrilling Premier League weekend, and this is what's coming up on the show. Because he scored the goal of the season. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic.
But I think he's the real deal, this kid, and I think he deserves to make that win place his own. I have to admit, as a United fan, I'm pleasantly surprised by the emphatic nature of the scoreline.
I think Everton will get themselves out of trouble because I think they just didn't have that clinical edge to them today, did they? Because Calvert-Lewin missed 2 gilt-edged chances.
If you follow the trend, they should get around about 34 points this season. 34 points has only been enough once in 31 seasons to keep you in the Premier League.
What's happened with Spurs is, beginning of the season, everything that could have gone their way did. Then, all of a sudden, everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. When you're playing against Man City, I think they've lost that air of invincibility. And I actually think that Arsenal will win the title. And it will be Liverpool second and Man City third.
They've just lost a little bit of ruthlessness, I think. You know, Haaland, his numbers are phenomenal, but he's not quite the same Erling Haaland that he was last season.
But it's clear that they need a little bit more from the fans in those moments where the game's starting to go a little bit flat. Hello, Perry, he's in lively mood today, by the way. He's got a lot to say, because he doesn't think that Arsenal have had enough attention for going top of the table.
What, last time match of the day?
Right.
You having a laugh?
Well, look, okay, we'll get into it, don't
Why are you
worry.
talking about the BBC on a TalkSport podcast?
Yeah,
There's no one watched match today then? You didn't watch match today? No?
I fell asleep by the time your game came
Yeah,
on.
because we were last, exactly.
Indeed. Crookie, you all right? You in a good mood?
A very good mood. Top of the form table still. Emphatic away win. 3 forward players on the score sheet for Manchester United.
Oh, sorry. Are you
What
talking
more
about
can you
Manchester
ask
United? I
for?
thought you were talking about Aston Villa. Aston Villa is surely top of the table in terms of form. Was it 22 points since the last the September international break? Outstanding form.
And should have been 4-5-1 down at half time. And Emery makes good substitutions. There's a shock. Manager making actually substitutions at half time.
I tell you what, though, Manchester United themselves could have been behind as well during that game against Everton at Goodison Park. We'll get into that in just a few moments. Tottenham Hotspur losing for a third successive game despite scoring first in a third successive game. Chelsea absolutely blitzed by Newcastle. We didn't have any players, but they seem to have enough to beat Chelsea on Saturday afternoon. And the big encounter between Manchester City and Liverpool. All to come here on Premier League All Access. So stick with us. Let's start, though, at Goodison Park. Well, Everton were well beaten by Manchester United in terms of scoreline. They did have some great opportunities in the game, but they had a real bad setback. I mean, they went to all that effort to create what was a bear pit of an atmosphere. It was really ramped up before the game with the pink cards and just the noise whenever the Premier League were mentioned or any Premier League hoarding came out. And then within 2 minutes, Alejandro Garnacho, or are you going to say Garnacho now?
Alejandro
He calls himself Garnacho, but
Okay.
we'll stick with
Yeah,
Garnacho.
you do what you want. He scores.
I'm going to call him Pele.
Are you? Because he scored the goal of the season. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. I said to you on air, I thought it was better than Rooney's against Manchester City.
Yeah, Rooney's, to be fair, against Man City was a bit of a shinner, wasn't it? And by the way, Diogo Dalot, that's not an assist. Do you know what I mean? When you're crossing it. And to be fair to Garnacho or Garnacho,
Yeah.
he's actually run away from the goal, hasn't he? He's got 2 or 3
pick
steps
up the
actually
flight of the
behind
ball.
him to get himself. So the athleticism, the agility that he showed. And I was saying to you, Sam, on air, when it's a great feeling because as he's made contact and it's the proper volley where it's right in the centre of the ball, as he's coming down, he just turns his left over his left shoulder because he thinks that's got a chance. Then he can actually see it arrowing in the top corner. It always looks better when the goalkeeper goes full length. Jordan Pickford actually goes full length, and Garnacho's like, "Don't be silly, mate. You ain't getting anywhere near it." And then he just completely, that bear pit you said there, just completely took the wind out of everybody's sails.
Is that already a top 10 Premier League goal of all time?
Yeah.
I think it has to be. And I think you'll do well to see a better goal this season. I'm delighted because I think the boy is a real talent. You know, you look at some of the big moments he's come up with already, that winner against Fulham last season when United were struggling. And I've been crying out for him to be given more game time. Obviously, Ten Hag has got a bit of a blind spot when it comes to Anthony because they paid so much money for him. But I think he's the real deal, this kid, and I think he deserves to make that win place his own.
Another player who did quite well actually for Manchester United is a player who they wanted to bring in the summer, who'd done very well on the pre-season tour and had impressed Ten Hag behind the scenes in Kobbie Mainoo. He got the opportunity to start for the first time this season after an injury hit couple of months, and he was impressive too.
Well, we've said as well that Man United need legs, don't they, in the midfield, playing next to McTominay. And the thing that impressed me as well, he's very, very good on the ball. You want legs, but when he actually gets the ball, he calms himself down, and his decision, his passing is very, very good as well. You know, so he can be really pleased with his evening's work, shall we say?
Yeah, I would suggest evening. It was
Evening,
rather
yeah,
dark.
early evening's work.
Evening-ish, and it went on until the evening, but not as long as the Tottenham game. We'll talk about that in just a second. But let's talk about Everton, because they dominated a lot of that match. They played quite well in spells in that match, but didn't score enough goals. And is that going to be their undoing?
Yeah, probably, because they're so reliant on Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's still not quite the Dominic Calvert-Lewin of old. Will he ever be the Dominic Calvert-Lewin of old when you look at the number of injuries that he's had over the past couple of seasons? But it didn't surprise me they dominated large parts of the game, because you had the protest before the match. Sean Dyche, we've been talking about, would have been trying to create that siege mentality in training all week. And Goodison Park is a difficult place to go anyway. So I have to admit, as a United fan, I'm pleasantly surprised by the emphatic nature of the scoreline.
You look absolutely relieved, actually, to be honest with you.
You didn't think they'd have 3 shots on target, Cricket, let them score 3 goals.
I'd have taken a point before the game.
Well, all the wins have been by the odd goal, haven't they, this season? That's, to be fair to
They've
Ten
been
Hag,
averaging
though,
1.1 goal per game before today.
yeah, I think it was 12 goals they had, didn't they, in their 13 games. But to be fair, in their 12 games, to be fair to Ten Hag, out of his 51 games, he's won 31 out of 51 games he's been in charge, which is the best record, isn't it, in the first 50 games?
He's had a lot to deal with. You know, this
Off pitch,
takeover
off the
saga
pitch.
has been going on for more than a year now. You've got absentee owners. There's been a lot of injuries this season. There's still far too many stories coming out of the dressing room for my liking. United's one of their best performances of the season. No Varane, no Casemiro. Is that a coincidence?
You
Garnacho
think that was one of their best
not Antony.
performances of the season?
Well, it's not difficult, is it?
They could have been,
There's not been too many.
but they could have been 2 or 3 down. Calvert-Lewin, but to be fair though, Onana stepped up. He made
He stepped up for the last 6 weeks.
Couple of decent saves. So, and you mentioned about Everton. I think Everton will get themselves out of trouble, because I think with Calvert-Lewin, I saw him at the London Stadium where he scored a great goal against West Ham. Doucouré's scoring goals. They just didn't have that clinical edge to them today, did they? Because I say Calvert-Lewin missed 2 gilt-edged chances.
If you follow the trend, they should get around about 34 points this season. In
Even
times
with the
gone
deduction?
by, with the deduction. So 34 with the deduction.
What about if that deduction is
Well,
less
obviously,
points?
if it is less, then they'll
Yeah.
earn more. But at this moment in time, if you put in the 10-point deduction and their points per game ratio, they'll get 34 points. 34 points has only been enough once in 31 seasons to keep you in the Premier League.
Do you know their problem? Luton. I think Luton are capable of finishing above Everton.
What just the form at Kenilworth Road, because
Not just that, actually. I think if you look at it, obviously they took a couple of beatings early in the season away at Brighton and at Stamford Bridge when I thought they were really poor. They've been in every game since then, Luton. I think Rob Edwards is proving himself to be a very good top-flight manager. I think they've got a bit of spirit about them.
pace up front, Ogbene, haven't they? Morris.
Well, he's the fastest
Brown.
player in the Premier League, and we will talk about them in the next section. But in terms of Everton, they were pretty aggrieved, I think, about giving away a second-half penalty. It's kind of the big talking point. Now, I thought it was a penalty, having looked at it. Crook thinks it's a penalty. Perry's having a turn here. He thinks it wasn't a
No,
penalty.
I don't think it was a penalty. The reason being is when Martial actually goes to take on Ashley Young on, Ashley Young goes to pull his leg away and Martial leaves his left foot out to initiate the contact.
He puts his leg out.
No, then he takes it away because he knows what Martial's going to try and do, and he puts it standing. So I think that Martial has initiated the contact.
It's about as clear a penalty as you'll see all day.
We'll see what Sean Dyche says about that, shall we?
Well, we know what Sean Dyche is
going to say. You and the
He'll be
Ginger
balanced.
Mafia.
No more questions, Your Honour.
He'll be balanced about it. Of course he will be. But we said as well, the reason it was overturned is because John Brooks referee had booked Martial for diving, and that's why VAR got involved. Otherwise, he wouldn't have got involved.
Well, because basically, by booking him for diving, he's saying that there was no contact between the two players. Therefore, that is a clear and obvious error. The VAR can engage and say, well, actually, there was contact between the two, so you better go and have a look at it. By doing that, he has to go and look at the monitor. Once he's then reviewed the monitor, he can see there's a penalty. I actually don't think, if John Brooks had said, I saw the contact, but it's not enough for a penalty, I don't think it would have then been overturned. But because he's booked him for diving and said, he's not got any touch on the ball, and he's got no touch on the player. Therefore, that's a clear and obvious error because he certainly did, and that's why he went over to the monitor.
So VAR has actually worked.
VAR has worked.
Yes.
Well, apart from you, because you don't think it was a penalty.
I don't think it's a penalty. Don't think it's enough.
It's an obvious penalty. Rashford taking it. Why was that? Was that because they needed to get him on the score sheet, or because Fernandes wasn't reliable from the spot? Which way was it?
Well, Fernandes isn't reliable from the spot, but I think there was an element of needing to get Rashford on the score sheet. I've got to say, he took the penalty really well. I think his penalty taking technique was probably better than the new hairdo. I'm not a massive fan of that.
Oh, it's a ginger thing. Can't have a ginger. Why can't someone have a ginger mullet? There's not enough ginger. We said the other week that mullets were coming back.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of mullets around, definitely. That's for sure. I think Crookie should have a mullet. I think it'd probably suit him.
I could pull it off, I think.
Yeah.
A bit of achy breaky heart.
I could see that. Big boost for Manchester United ahead of what is a very big week because they're in the Champions League and they've got to win their game in midweek in Istanbul. Everton fans may be a little bit more concerned, I think, after what they saw today, just because they had so many opportunities and didn't end up converting them. Similar sort of story, actually, in the game at Tottenham Hotspur, and Crooks just got back from that. Spurs 1, Aston Villa 2. Villa leapfrogging Spurs into the top 4 with a win in North London. 3 defeats in a row for Tottenham. But I think more concerning than that is that they've taken the lead in all of those games and still lost. And it's because they haven't backed that up.
Yeah, they were wasteful. I mean, they could have been at least 2 up even before they did take the lead with that deflected Lo Celso goal. I think Kulusevski, having done the hard work, probably has to score. All right, he's unlucky it's come back off the post. Son, uncharacteristically, has missed a really good opportunity. They had chances before that. And then even once they went 1-0 up, Brennan Johnson was wreaking havoc. Kulusevski was really impressive in that first half. But they couldn't put Villa to the sword. And to be fair to Unai Emery, he made a couple of changes at half-time. Leon Bailey on for Matty Cash. Cash having booked for what I thought was a really awful tackle, actually, on Bentancur. Took him out of the game. And I know by the rule book it isn't a red card. But to quote footballers, he's gone to do him. He knows what he's doing there.
Yeah, he's gone to hurt him, without a shadow of a doubt.
So I thought that was poor. But Bailey comes on and transformed the game because Udogie, who I think has been one of Tottenham's best players this season, was really causing mayhem in that first half with the way he was getting in down the left-hand side. With Bailey there to occupy that space, he couldn't get forward. Bailey was a real threat on the counter-attack. Tielemans has come on in midfield, which was a problem for Villa in the first half, and he set up the winner, brilliantly taken by Ollie Watkins. I think actually in the second half, Villa were much the better team. Both teams had chances, both goalkeepers made saves, but probably on the basis of the second 45 minutes, Villa deserved it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was an odd decision not to play a centre-back from Postecoglou, wasn't it?
I think he put Emerson Royal there because he wanted a bit of pace. He doesn't trust Eric Dyer, does he? And obviously Ben Davies is there. And you saw that, as you said, not playing centre back with Ollie Watkins' goal. When he came in and he came deeper, didn't he, in that little 10 position, when he had enough time to turn. One of the centre halves has got to go in and engage him. So he's got enough time to turn with Tielemans. I think Tielemans actually gave Aston Villa more control in the midfield area. He's done it a couple of times coming on as a sub, isn't he, for Villa? He looks fitter now than what he did at Leicester.
He's getting there, I think.
Yeah, so he gave him that little bit more sort of security in there. And what's happened with Spurs is, beginning of the season, everything that could have gone their way did. If you think about the 2 late goals against Sheffield United, you think the goal disallowed for Liverpool, which should have been a goal.
The penalty that should have been given in the United game.
In the United game as well, but you had to mention United one, but we're trying to forget about that. And then, all of a sudden, everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. The Chelsea game, where if Son scores when it's 1-0 and he's a toe offside, that could be 4 or 5. Van de Ven obviously pulls his hamstring, James Maddison gets injured. And even today...
Romero gets sent off.
Romero gets sent off, but that's not bad luck. That's just, stupid play from him. But all the other stuff is bad luck. And then even today, Son had 3 goals disallowed for offside, and 2 of them were again on the borderline, weren't they? Right on the line. So
VAR wasn't working initially, was it?
We didn't see any lines. Was it for the? Was it
so
the
in the first few minutes of the game, there was a shout for a penalty. Brian Hill got an elbow in the face from Ezri Konsa, and Tottenham fans actually think they should have had a penalty for that. But VAR wasn't working. Is that right?
So I'm not switching
on.
Has
VAR ever been working in the Premier League?
Well, they didn't plug it in or didn't switch it on.
I think they forgot to press the on button.
Has anybody seen the screen by the side of the pitch?
Yeah, I don't know whether just someone had turned up late or something, so they didn't have it for the first 10 minutes or something. I don't know.
It felt like a big win for Villa though, because their home form obviously has been exceptional. They've won every game at home this season. Away from home, it's been more of a struggle. So to go to Tottenham, albeit with Tottenham missing key players, and to come from behind and win, I think that's a statement that they're going to be part of the conversation in terms of that fourth place.
What conversation? The
Top
fourth
four?
place, top 4, top 6, what?
No, fourth place. You know, Liverpool, City and Arsenal are going to finish in the top 3. It's in what order they finish. That fourth place is basically a shootout between Newcastle...
You're going to chuck Man United, didn't you?
Yeah, I am, yeah. Newcastle, Manchester United, Tottenham,
Has he been in the bar before he came?
Brighton.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
And Villa.
All right, okay.
Because I'm not putting Chelsea in the mix at
putting
this moment in
Chelsea in?
time. No, I'm not.
Carl Walker was putting them in for the title
No, we're talking
yesterday.
about top 4, not
So
not
I think
bottom, not
you've
getting
got
relegated.
5 teams competing for that 4th spot, and it's actually very difficult for us to say with any certainty who's going to finish 4th. Go on.
Villa-
Who do you think will finish 4th?
I think if they back Unai Emery in the January transfer
I think
window,
they will.
because their squad isn't deep enough, and he's done brilliantly managing the Europa Conference League, you know, like Thursdays and Sundays, where everybody moans, don't they, about Thursdays, Sundays, and he's been fine. But what you said there, they could have been four down at half time today, away from home.
We are getting a little bit carried away with the recency bias. The fact of the matter is that they were very lucky to get all 3 points today.
He's got a thing about
They've been
Emery and
very
Villa.
lucky at other games as well to get through certain scenarios. They are a good team, and when they're on form, they're making hay when the sun shines, especially at home. But you know, today, for example, as you know, they could have been 3 or 4 down before they got their goal.
But you say recency bias. Unai Emery's been there 13 months now. When he took over, they were 16th.
Yeah.
They were going nowhere under Steven Gerrard. They're 4th in the table. They've picked up more wins in this calendar year than at any point previously in their Premier League history.
And they're the form team in the league.
So that's not recency bias. Unai Emery over the last 13 months has worked miracles.
No, you're turning my question around saying completely different. Recency bias is suggesting now they're going to finish in the top 4.
I think they're contenders.
Well, everyone's a contender at this moment in time because it's
Apart
so
from
competitive
Chelsea.
at the top.
Who do you
Chelsea.
think will finish 4th?
I think it will be Liverpool, Manchester City,
We've done that.
Arsenal, and
Newcastle.
I think Newcastle got a great shout.
To be fair to Aston Villa as well, they've got a centre half like Pau Torres can score goals as well. He's playing really well.
He's played
adapted-
very well.
He's adapted to the Premier League.
Some people weren't sure
quite
at the
well,
start,
I think,
were they?
don't you? Like,
Yeah,
gives them a bit of balance on the
I do
left-hand
think that he's
side.
made mistakes in the early part of the season, as I thought he would, because I didn't think he had the pace to adapt to the Premier League. It's taken him 3 or 4 months. He's getting there.
This vehicle is reversing.
There was a stage, Perry, when Unai Emery had been in situ for a while, and one in our number said, "Well, I don't really see that they're not that different to when Steven Gerrard was there."
I don't think that's a
then you looked at
complete lie.
you looked at the league table and the form table, and the stats suggested otherwise.
It's interesting how you can just make up stories and change the narrative completely. Should we go back to your assertion about Newcastle United not finishing above Aston Villa? We did a big event in Newcastle.
I still
on Friday
fancy
night.
Villa to finish above
And he
Newcastle.
said to me, whatever you do, don't mention the fact that I think that Newcastle were going to finish lower
So
than
he's
Aston
playing
Villa.
to the crowd, was he?
He was playing to the crowd, yeah.
No, your audience
And he
probably
said,
like
where's
it,
my
so-
mate Jason Tyndall? Is he
Like
around
it.
here somewhere? Yeah, okay. All right, let's move on before the banter takes over the podcast. Or if you can call it that. On Saturday's action, there was quite a bit to discuss. And let's start with the big game at the Etihad. Well, Manchester City won, Liverpool won. Big result at lunchtime on Saturday. City failing to win a home game for the first time in 2023. I spoke to Carl Walker after he summed it up quite nicely after the game. I thought he sounded like a manager actually, during the course of the interview.
disappointed
He
with
was
the first
saying,
half.
disappointed with
Result.
the result, but not the performance. The performance was great. And then listed every team in the Premier League that could be title contenders.
Did United get a mention?
As well? No, they didn't.
Is that Manchester recency bias?
Are these two the top 2, do you think?
What? Man City and Liverpool?
He's not going to say that, is he?
No. 'Cause I
Well, I asked him.
I said beginning of the season that I thought Arsenal would win it, and everybody
So did
poo-pooed
I.
me.
Yeah.
So just look, I'm not going to change. Man City were very good in the first half.
Excellent.
And again, they missed chances where they could have been maybe 1 or 2 goals up a little bit more. But I think when you're playing against Man City, I think they've lost that air of invincibility, because when they're going up in the past, other teams would think, we're done now. They've got too much control of the game. There's no chance of getting back into it. I mentioned against Chelsea, they were up 3 times. Obviously, Chelsea pulled them back and ended up drawing 4-4. Against Liverpool, they should have been maybe 2 or 3 up. And then in the second half, Liverpool come back into it and Jurgen Klopp just tweaks it a little bit. So I think they've lost that say that invincibility, and I actually think that Arsenal will win the title, and it will be Liverpool second and Man City third.
That is a massive
That
shout.
is a huge
That's woke
call.
you both up, isn't it?
That is a huge
That
claim.
is a huge claim. We'll follow that with interest, because already, before we've even finished this particular section, Joe, the producer, has clipped that up and put that in the intro, and it's probably viral already. In terms of the game itself, I thought it was fascinating. I thought it was a really fascinating game, and I thought tactically it was really there was so many little nuances. For example, we know that Doku's a massive threat. I couldn't believe the amount of room that he was given by Liverpool and the lack of protection that Trent was given, and then Matip as well in the second half there, and the way that basically Pep shifted his whole team over to the left. Akanji was the one pushing him from the left-hand side into midfield, then on to Bernardo Silva, who drifted to the left in that sort of number 10 stroke left midfield position to feed Doku, who just went at Trent over and over and over again, and it did cause him all sorts of problems, didn't it? I mean, I know the goal didn't come from that, but it came from a mistake from Alisson, actually. But we were saying through the commentary, it's such a slender margin. If you don't get the second goal, then you're going to find yourself on the wrong end of a bloody nose, and that's what happened to them. But should they have had a second goal? Because they had a goal disallowed.
I think they probably should. I think it was very soft. I think if there's any contact on the goalkeeper, it's minimal. I think there's too much protection for goalkeepers.
But why
now.
is it okay for Alisson to push him
pushes
away
Akanji
initially
first.
and then get a touch back, and that's deemed a foul? That's what we can't work out.
I was saying, I think Chris Kavanagh, the referee, is trying to prove that he's been a bit too clever. I think I've seen something there, because when Akanji stands in front of Alisson, obviously to stop him coming for the cross, doesn't he? And Alisson just sort of pushes him away, and it's not a push from Akanji. He barely brushes him.
There's
And he-
minimal
Well, it's definitely not enough for him to drop the ball the way he did.
yeah, and Alisson said he had a bit of a shaky game in general.
He did, yeah.
But he pulled off a brilliant save from Phil Foden down to his left-hand
did.
side, where it could have gone 2-0 to Man City. But that's not a foul, because if you're going to give that as a foul, how many fouls are you going to give in the penalty area when there's corners, when there's like barging and pushing and players facing the other way and putting their hands around other players? So I don't think it's foul, but it's not going to be overturned because it's not clear and obvious.
I'm not surprised that you would think that after the Arsenal-Newcastle game.
Well, that was two-hand push, to be fair. That was it, Joe Linton and Gabriel.
How many hands? How many hands? That's what Ian Wright was saying, wasn't he, on Saturday night? Erling Haaland has got to 50 Premier League goals faster than any other player, but not by a little bit, by quite some margin. I mean, listen, he took his goal well, and he was a threat not only going forward, he also helped out coming back this week as well.
Yeah, he did. It was a really interesting performance from Erling Haaland, and clearly maybe trying to work on other facets of his game apart from the goal scoring. But listen, I mean, you're right. It was a gift from the goalkeeper initially. Actually, I think he could have done better with a shot as well, having got a hand to
Well,
it.
I think he was still surprised that Nathan Ake weaved his way past
That was brilliant.
Szoboszlai and Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Did that highlight and epitomise Trent Alexander-Arnold, though? Because in that right-back position where Ake comes inside him far too easy, just dangles out a left leg, then he comes inside. It's a great little ball into Haaland. And then second half, he starts getting himself on the ball, coming into that inverted midfield place.
Scores a brilliant
and then
goal.
But it's his timing to get into that space at the edge of the 18-yard box, where his first touch is great, and he doesn't try and hit the laces out of the ball. He just like caresses it, doesn't he, with the instep of his right foot, and gives Ederson absolutely no chance down to his right-hand side. So that's the dilemma, isn't it? But Southgate's have with Trent Alexander-Arnold coming into the Euros.
Well, that's why he plays him in midfield.
I think this is the difference, though, as Perry sort of articulated, between Man City last season, when they swept it all before them and won the treble, and Man City this season. They've just lost a little bit of ruthlessness, I think. Haaland, his numbers are phenomenal, but he's not quite the same Erling Haaland that he was last season. Alvarez started the season superbly. His stars waned a little bit as well. So I think there's an opportunity this year. I certainly don't think Man City are as good this season as they were last. Do I think it will be Arsenal? I did at the start of the season. I'm still a bit worried about their lack of firepower. I think Liverpool are going to be in the mix. I think we're going to get a 3-team title race right to the very end.
Well, I hope that Liverpool are in it, because Jurgen Klopp made me stand up in front of everybody yesterday, and he actually said to me, "Do you think we're in it?" And what are you going to say? Yeah, and I do think they're in it, and I think they're a great price actually in terms of, if you look at the other teams in the mix, I think they're probably the least favourites out of the three. And I think actually there is a bit of now still there, by the way, from the previous winners of the Premier League a couple of seasons ago.
And also, if it comes to it in the second half of the season, that they can bin off their European aspirations.
Absolutely.
Nobody cares if they win the Europa League or not.
Absolutely.
In the forward positions, he plays the three up front. He's got 3 from 5, hasn't he? So he's got more choice in the.
He's got more weapons going forward, and also
he's got 5 forwards. You've got none.
Let's be clear.
Jesus will come good.
Let's be clear. They've got that great home form that they have. They haven't been playing particularly well this season. At the beginning of the season, they were still finding their feet. When they really hit their straps, they'll be a force to be reckoned with, I think. Quick word on the atmosphere at the Etihad Stadium, because Pep Guardiola again was going around. Well, it was all right to start with, and they really ramp it up well. And I always find this at the Etihad; they start really well, but the surroundings are so good. It is sometimes so comfortable for them that people sort of drift off at the beginning of the second half. And that was an issue. And Pep was going around. He was saying, "I can't hear you." He was walking over to a section. "Come on, I need you. I need more from you." And when I spoke to him about it afterwards, it was, "Well, I need noise. I love noise. I just want noise," or whatever. And he was reluctant to get too involved in it. But it's clear that they need a little bit more from the fans in those moments where the game's starting to go a little bit flat.
I agree. Listen, I'm not going to take the advantage to have a go at Man City fans because I get battered for that. But is it not the 12:30 kickoff slot that was a problem as well?
He suggested that was an issue.
It's not often quite flat because
there's a different atmosphere.
You look at the Brentford-Arsenal game, that was really raucous. Obviously, I've done a lot of the big games on a Sunday this season, and the atmosphere is always terrific. I think that 12:30 slot, when maybe people have been out the night before, the players are a little bit lethargic as well.
They're not all like you. They don't all live like you.
No, but it's not. It's just
every football fan's not out on the Raz on the.
There wouldn't be many football fans if everyone lived like him.
Exactly.
We're still amazed he's here.
But it just always seems to be a little bit flat at 12:30 on a Saturday.
Brentford 0, Arsenal 1. City Liverpool result meant that Arsenal could go top. And in brackets here, the producer has put quick. Now,
that's my point. You see, there's an anti-Arsenal bias. How can you so quick when a team's gone to the top of the league?
I've been waiting for this all day. I wouldn't let him talk about it on the Sunday session because I've been waiting for this moment. He's absolutely furious. He thinks there's a media bias against Arsenal.
Should we talk about Brentford? We've done Arsenal, haven't we?
I tell you why. Because everyone's looking at that game with the draw. Obviously, Man City and Liverpool. It was Arsenal's chance, to go top of the league, and everyone's looking at the game thinking, I wonder if you're going to slip up, if you're not going to win. When it was 0-0, I was coming back on the train, I was looking on my phone, everything like that. Oh, Arsenal ain't playing well. Are they going to bottle going top of the league? And then when Kai Havertz scores, and then you win 1-0, and then the narrative is, well, Arsenal didn't play very well, they weren't free-flowing, even the interviews afterwards, and you think, no, nobody's free-flowing when you go to the G-Tech. It doesn't work that way.
I think one of the back pages of one of the papers today says Havertz strikes late as Gunners go top. Great big picture.
This one ignores it completely.
Right. So, and when they're saying it was a bit of a clunky performance,
well, it was.
But that's how you win league titles.
Okay, but
when you're not playing well,
we're not going to lie and say that it was free flowing when it wasn't. It was good performance in the fact that they've gone to a very difficult place to go.
Yes,
you've won. You've got 3 points.
Physical.
And you're top of the league. Where's the agenda?
What, being last on? I can't talk about that, can we? But
actually, are you just annoyed at match of the day?
No, I'm not. I knew, and I know what the narrative would have been. It would have been that Arsenal missed the chance if they hadn't won the game to go top of the league, and they've showed a bit of frailty. Then you win it.
But that never happens. So you're just making that up.
No, I'm not. I know the anti-Arsenal bias in the media. Trust me. And that's why
there's so many Arsenal supporting journalists in the print media.
There's so many anti-agendas. Everyone's anti-Liverpool. Everyone's anti-Manchester City. Everyone's anti-Chelsea. Everyone's anti-Manchester United. Everyone's anti-Arsenal. I mean, you can't be anti-everything.
And
can I ask you a serious question? Do you get a trophy for being top in November?
No, but you will get one when you win it in May.
Oh, look at that.
It's a still. There's a still behind the eyes. Why are you so convinced?
Because we ain't playing as well as what we were at this stage at the same last season. I know winning. I know Man City aren't, obviously Liverpool aren't. So I think
Liverpool are probably playing better than they were at this stage last season.
Yeah, but they've not hit their peak that they can hit. Arsenal can only improve, and everybody's saying about that's without natural goal scorer. Even Jesus said himself, isn't it? I'm not a natural goal scorer. Trying to take the pressure off of himself. Declan Rice has made a massive difference, with the physicality, and that's why Arteta played him as the pivot yesterday at the base of midfield, not Jorginho, because he knew that obviously Brentford were very physical. And then obviously Kai Havertz coming on and getting his goal, you hope that his confidence goes on. So I just think there's a belief about this Arsenal side, what wasn't there last year because they hadn't been in that position before. Obviously, it's all key is your main players staying fit. And when Thomas Frank said they did really well against Martinelli, they did really well against Bukayo Saka.
We kept them quiet until the last few seconds. And that's when you want your quality players to deliver, and that's exactly what Bukayo Saka did with his cross. It was a peach of a ball, that, wasn't it?
Well, it was similar to the Chelsea game, wasn't it, when they came back and took a point there late on, Saka with a cross for Trossard, I think it was on that occasion.
At the back post.
He's the key man for me, Bukayo Saka. I think if you are going to win the Premier League, and I think it's probably still a big if at this stage, he is going to have a massive role
You've done well to
play.
do that, though. Pick out Bukayo Saka as Arsenal's key man. I mean, amongst that sea of great players, it was like, that's really left field.
But that's another good point what you've made there. The Chelsea game, when we're 2-0 down and not in the game at all after 70 minutes and look like
still
you're going to get beat,
coming back and
then
getting
you
a
come
point.
back and get a point. So there's all these little pointers, right?
I'm going to send Rob Sanchez a little magnum of champagne if you do win the league.
Well, unless Aaron Ramsdale ends up giving the ball away inside his penalty area like he almost
But we've got
did
Declan Rice to get back on the line to clear it off, so we're right, haven't we?
Should have scored there in Birmingham.
What happened with Ramsdale? What do you put that down to?
Well, we spoke about it in the pre-weekend podcast. There was so much pressure
He looked nervous.
on Ramsdale going into that game, and that has been whipped up by Mikel Arteta. I agree with Gary Neville on that. It's a needless sideshow, and I feel for him. Actually, he composed himself quite well, and in the second half, I think he was back to the old Aaron Ramsdale.
Yeah, but they might need him later on in the season. Let's look at the rest of Saturday now, starting with a thumping win for Newcastle United. Well, Crook and I were in Newcastle on Friday night, and I must admit the noises coming out of the training ground on Friday were not that positive. I don't think they really fancied themselves going into it, or certainly that was the way they were playing it, but they were a little bit coy because they did have a couple back, including Alexander Isak, and boy, did he make an impact. It was a thumping victory, wasn't it? And did it have you worried about your Aston Villa bet when you first saw the result?
Yeah, a little bit, because obviously the narrative was that Chelsea had turned a bit of a corner. But again, if I take you back to midweek, I said I wasn't necessarily convinced that Chelsea had turned a corner.
The biggest worry is when Thiago Silva tries to turn a corner.
It's like the QE2 who's trying to turn. How was he 39? He looked
39.
like he was about 79, didn't he?
Yeah, I think...
he's a great servant. He's a brilliant footballer.
I think it's becoming a problem, though,
but it
is at the heart of that defence. And Reece James is a problem as well. I think in the minute he's a little bit too emotional. He's obviously not quite match fit and match sharp, and maybe that's having an impact.
Do you know what? I wanted to talk about this because I'm a little bit worried about Reece James, and I'm worried about him for this reason. He's a brilliant footballer, and he's obviously got Chelsea at his heart, but I think yesterday exposed two things. He didn't look 100% fit, and he got outdone for pace by Anthony Gordon quite considerably. And I went back, and I think we talked about this before, about his injury record and the issues that he has had over the course of the last few years. And I wonder when this starts to become a little bit of a red flag. He's 23 years of age, so it might just be someone who's played a lot of stop-start football because of COVID, because of so many games, because of the odd injury here and there, and his body hasn't yet caught up to the way he wants to perform over the course of his career. But the record is worrying. 9 games already he's missed this season through injury. 25 games last season through injury. 20 in 21-22. 9 in 20-21. 63 games in 3.5 seasons he has missed the football. He's lost 175 days to hamstring injuries alone.
Well,
that is a concern.
That affects your pace.
Well, the thing is, it affects your pace and it affects your confidence, because people think it's confidence about getting on the ball, and having a decent touch and make the right decision. It's confidence in your body, that you can push your body and you can play to your maximum, and then you don't think about having injuries. I remember Michael Owen saying he had really bad problems with his hamstrings, and he said he wasn't the same player when he kept having these recurrence of hamstring injuries. You end up running differently, then you put pressure on other parts of your body. And the sending off, obviously got one of them was just kicking the ball away. Yeah. But the other one where he tripped Anthony Gordon up and he grabbed him, that's just pure frustration, because a fully fit Reece James doesn't do that, because in your head you think, I've got a chance here of recovering. I might get back round the other side. So maybe he said they've got to look at him better, manage him better, like Everton are doing with Calvert-Lewin, who's had loads of like different injury problems. So it might be a case of playing a lot of football when you're younger. You know, obviously coming up through the age groups, and you say he's 23 now. So he just didn't look comfortable in his own head.
Kieran Trippier looked comfortable. Anthony Gordon looked comfortable. Even Lewis Miley at 17
Brilliant.
looked really
Great
comfortable.
ball for Isaac's
and
goal.
the ball for the goal was terrific, wasn't it? He really was. How do you think they'll get on in Paris?
They've got a chance. You know, you look at the first game against
Think it'll be a draw?
PSG. It was.
Splinter's back, is he?
Oh, he's back.
It,
Splinters.
no, but it was so convincing, wasn't it? The manner of victory in the first game at St James's Park. I mean, we see PSG as this global team of superstars, but actually, I'm not sure they're very good. I think Newcastle, if they can play anywhere near their full capability, I think you might be commentating on a famous Newcastle away win. There you go.
Well,
No splinters there.
Exactly not wrong. Nick Pope will have to be in good form, and he has been in decent form as well, to be fair. He's made big saves when he's needed to. So, I agree with you, Cricky. I think they've got a decent chance.
Well, I hope so. We're at the Parc des Princes live on TalkSport on Tuesday night, and it should be a very good experience. In terms of relegation, first home win for Luton over Palace keeps them out of the bottom three because of the points deduction for Everton. Bournemouth make really light work of Sheffield United. You were at this game. It may have been a bit of a six-pointer, but no one told Sheffield United.
Sheffield United were awful because they played too deep. Paul Heckingbottom, I could see him on the touchline. He wanted his team to be more physical and try and get about Bournemouth. To be fair, that was probably under Andoni Iraola, that was probably their best performance.
They were good against Newcastle.
I'll tell you it was very good. In the midfield area, you had Lewis Cook, who was excellent, and Ryan Christie. Like Lewis Cook plays a bit deeper, Ryan Christie just plays a bit in front. And the Sheffield United midfield didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to go and engage him. Semenyo was very good. Tavernier obviously getting his 2 goals. Kluivert getting his goal as well. Is it the third player to score in all 5 major leagues? Kluivert?
And the youngest, I think, as
The
well.
youngest to do so.
Yeah. Do you know the other 2?
The other 2, all 5 major leagues.
that's a
Good
Oh,
shout.
it
Ruud
is a
van
good
Nistelrooy?
shout.
Nope.
Zlatan?
Nope. I know 1.
Samuel Eto'o?
Nope. It's got you in it. Radachoyu
Wow.
is one of them.
You don't know the other.
Is that it?
And I forgot the other one. It's a good question, though, isn't it? And the other thing with Kluivert as
Put
well.
the answer in the comment section if you've got it.
The other thing with Kluivert as well, he's actually scored in the Eredivisie where obviously Radachoyu didn't. So he's got that
so
over.
he's the only person to have done that, I
Yeah.
think. In terms of the goalkeeping for that goal, that was pretty...
Jovetic,
Stefan Jovetic.
I think so.
Okay, don't hold him to it though. And
You're just shouting out random names.
poor old Wes,
Stoichkov.
poor old Wes Fotheringham couldn't hold on to it either, which is why Kluivert got his first goal in that game. Burnley blew a lead as well in their match at Turf Moor. I mean, Vincent Kompany was sort of coming out and saying, being quite admirable, you know, we played well for 86 minutes. The problem is now, matches are well into their 90s and they keep losing late goals, and boy did they. I mean, I think actually they should have had a penalty before they got a penalty, because I thought that they were both penalties on Koleosho. But you've got to defend better than that, especially towards the end of a game if you want to hold on to points.
It's been their problem all season, and I think this was a massive opportunity lost for Burnley. I actually fancy Burnley to get a result in this game because no Bowen, no Antonio, 2 such key players for West Ham. The fact they've got themselves into a winning position, West Ham missing 2 such important players and still couldn't get over the line. I think it's a big concern for Burnley, and I'm still surprised that Vincent Kompany isn't coming under more pressure, because at the minute that they just don't look like they're capable of mounting any kind of challenge to stay in the Premier League.
So let's talk about that, because we're still, into November, nearly December. We haven't had a manager that's been fired yet, and there are increasing noises about Paul Heckingbottom, Steve Cooper, and Vincent Kompany. So who do you think there is deserving of more criticism out of those 3?
More criticism. I think Vincent Kompany is getting away. I know, obviously, they think that he's probably a season in front of where they expect him to be, and he changes the culture.
Poor players.
And the thing, they're just a naivety about Burnley. They're just too easy to play against. Even when they start dropping deeper against West Ham, obviously Souček gets his goal, which is his second one in 2 games. But yeah, I think he's getting a bit of a free pass.
Are you not surprised that Heckingbottom hasn't come under more criticism today, bearing in mind how they played yesterday in the game? Because they're playing against Bournemouth. This is a game that they should be targeting, especially at home.
Well, I said there was no there was no intensity about Sheffield United yesterday. There was no aggression about them. To be fair, when Ollie McBurney came on, he did make a difference because he tried to be a little bit physical. But I don't think, from what I saw yesterday with Sheffield United, I think they're done and dusted. I don't think that there's the fight that the Luton players have and the belief that they have in the manager, like Luton players have in Rob Edwards.
Well, match of the day left their best till last, and Steve Cooper had a bit of a rant yesterday in the Nottingham Forest game. Well, after the Nottingham Forest game, they were beaten by Brighton by 3 goals to 2. It was a topsy-turvy game, an entertaining game of football. Brighton coming out the victors, but he was very unhappy about a few decisions, and he was unhappy about a few stories that have started to come out over the last 24 hours about his job as well. We were talking about his post-match interview and how it was slightly, we didn't really understand what he was having
He really went in on Anthony Taylor.
He did. I didn't understand what that was about. I just wonder whether or not there's a bit of pressure coming his way.
Obviously, he was very strong that it wasn't a penalty for Brighton.
But it was.
I thought it was the clearest penalty you'll see
It was a penalty.
anywhere, any weekend. So it was a strange time to rant at Anthony Taylor. And maybe with hindsight, when you see the story on the back page of the Mail on Sunday, maybe that is a manager under big pressure. And I think the next game is against Everton. And if they were to lose that, then maybe there will be questions asked.
That doesn't really make any sense, really, because last season, when they couldn't get a win, and you can understand why the pressure was built, but again, another manager that he's got a team up probably a season earlier than what they thought he would. Now this season, where I don't think they've got any chance of getting relegated, and they're going to solidify their place in the Premier League, then he's becoming under more
Maybe
pressure.
the owner, we know the owner is a little bit erratic and he's quite ambitious. He's spoken to Jim White on TalkSport about that. Maybe he feels like they've not kicked on necessarily enough as they should have done. Well, they signed 15 players in the summer, I think, in the end.
It was 30 last year, wasn't it?
I think it's really interesting. I wonder whether or not Steve Cooper is under...
You know Steve Cooper.
I do, and
Are you surprised by his actions after the match?
Well, I'm surprised, really. I imagine this is a guy who's done an outstanding job at Nottingham Forest, who is absolutely 100% backed by all of the supporters and has a great relationship with that group of players, a huge group of players, by the way, and with the supporters. And every time there is a slight dip, just a slight dip, there is constant speculation over and over and over and over again about his job. And you would think that a manager that has taken Nottingham Forest into the Premier League for the first time in over 20 years would be afforded the odd dip every now and again, bearing in mind this time 2 years ago they were bottom of the Championship. So I'm not surprised that in the end it's starting to affect him a little bit.
Can I just say, in the interest of balance, I did make some inquiries after that story came out, and the information that I received was that it's correct to say he's under pressure, but at the moment there's no immediate desire to make a change. But this Everton game feels like quite a big one.
But hasn't he just got to ignore all the noise? Just ignore it completely, because he's been in
That's
this situation.
difficult to do, I would imagine.
David Moyes does it quite well.
Does he? Sometimes he reacts to it.
No, I think he could take a good lesson from David. I think David Moyes, you say, I can't control anything what's going on outside, because his job...
Yeah, but he's not always the easiest to deal with. Sometimes all of the managers have their moments, and that's understandable because of the pressure that is involved with it. I think ultimately, yes, you do have to be able to filter out the noise every now and again, but at the same time, you can understand while that pressure builds up.
Yeah, you can, but at the moment, I know Nottingham Forest obviously got beat by Brighton, but their performances this season have probably been more consistent and better at the same stage of what they were last season, where they had to get themselves used to the Premier League.
And they've suffered with injury. No Awani, the greatest will in the world. Chris Wood is not a like-for-like replacement. I don't know what Chris Wood is doing for the penalty, by the way. And that's why it's even stranger that Steve Cooper has decided to go in on someone who he says is the best referee in the country. But to suggest that Anthony Taylor has somehow been affected by all the negativity around VAR, I think was out of order, to be honest.
Interesting. Okay, Fulham Wolves on Monday Night Football, live on TalkSport. Then we go to Paris for Newcastle United's trip to Paris Saint-Germain. Wednesday night, Galatasaray Manchester United is live on TalkSport 2 at 5:45. It's a pivotal game. And then Adrian takes you round the grounds before we've got Europa League action on Thursday night as well. Next weekend, more live football for you from the Premier League and the Championship as well. Newcastle against Manchester United. Plus, I think I'm doing West Brom versus Leicester next Saturday as well. It's a massive weekend. It's always a massive week on TalkSport.